White Noise Metal with that BS dude, Brian Shields.
Welcome to White Noise Metal. I'm that BS dude, Brian Shields, and today I have the privilege of being joined here by Matt Heafy of Trivium, one of my real musical heroes out there. Trivium, Between the Buried, and Me, Shadows Fall, my three favorite bands in the world. So it's a real privilege to have been able to get to know them and to interview them over this past year. Now, over the course of 4 studio albums, Ember to Inferno, Ascendancy, The Crusade, and most recently Shogun, Trivium has established a signature musical sound. It's thrash-based, it features Matt and Corey Bewley's dueling lead guitars, Paolo Gregoletto's bass lines, and Travis Smith's powerful drumming, and it's really a sound that I never tire of. But for most bands, you know, that would be enough, because frankly, with metal, lyrics aren't all that important for a lot of bands, but not true for this guy here and for Trivium. In my opinion, he's one of the great masters in the use of the English language, creating lyrics that expand vocabularies, create great visual messages, and most importantly, really, offering a consistent message of hope and unity while keeping a critical eye on the world's challenges. So today on White Noise Metal, we're going to talk with Matt about some of those lyrics and learn more about his writing process and inspiration. So thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about process first. When you sit down to write lyrics, is it after the music? Is it before the music? What's the process like?
As I can remember, for the first 4 records we did, it was always music first, and then I wrote the lyrics on top of the music. But lately, I've been able to write lyrics as more of like a poetry style, and then I've been pairing it to the music that we've had, because we've got about 30 songs written for our next record already. And I've just been writing constant lyrics. We've been having a lot of stuff going on, whether in the band or in life, and then that's good, because you know, there's so many bands that everything is so positive. I mean, a lot of our negative stuff is for the sake of being positive, more of like use of therapy than other than just being like an angry song. But also the bands that it's all positive and all strength stuff, it's like you can't just get there. You have to work towards that positivity. So definitely the lyrics on this next one, they've been powerful enough where I didn't need music to create the lyrics at all. So this time I've been doing some lyrics first and then some music first, but before it's always been music first, then lyrics.
And where do you get your inspiration?
Everything. Anything from current events to social issues to what's been going on in my life to everything. You know, I just try to write about anything and everything that's directly around me. Something that will mean something to me and to people that read it. Yeah.
So, you really can tell that over the course of your career, the way that you've taken everything from things that are deeply personal, from almost, you know, sort of the traditional love song thing, all the way to stories in the news.
Yep, everything. As long as it means something to me, so I can back it. You know, it can't just be something I kind of feel something about. That's being intense.
Excellent. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, to Ember to Inferno, and I think lyrically, to me, the song that really stands out is the title track on
When I was writing it, it was kind of like the vision and the mission statement behind the band. You know, I know it was our first record, but it really showed all our goals and everything in there. You know, and Birth, Just an Ember, A Spark of Creation, it would just start off as an idea that we wanted to create into something big. And with every record we've ever had, the album titles have been directly reflective of what's been going on with our band at that point in time. And so the idea was to go from that nothingness to something special. And so we didn't know when or how or if, but we knew we wanted it, and that was our goal. So that's what the song was about. It was about creating that vision of ourselves and to really go for it.
And that's really been kind of a lyrical theme throughout your career, is this idea of fire, of spark, of...
Yeah, it has. I don't know why. There's a lot of fire in there, and there's usually a lot of like ocean and water stuff in there as well. I'm not really a beach guy, nor am I a pyromaniac, so I don't really know what that's all about.
And the stuff on Ember, I mean, I don't mean to be condescending, but how old were you when you were writing that stuff?
16, 17.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I joined Trivium at 12/13 years old, and I got into metal at 11, or metal at 12. I got into guitar at 11, metal at 12, Trivium at 12, 13. And so it was my first real band, my first real job, and I knew right away that's what I wanted to do when I was older. And, you know, now, 11 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. And it's definitely gotten way bigger and way better. I mean, never in my high school days when I was listening to Perseverance every single day did I think we'd be doing a co-headlining show with Heafy for 2 nights in a row in California. So I mean, it's like, stuff definitely is going the right way. We're not satisfied at all, we're not content. I mean, we love what we're doing, but we know there's so much more to go.
Let's move on a little bit to Ascendancy, because I think that's really where we start to hear your real mastery of the language, I think. And I want to start with Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation. And I just love that word, trepidation. You know, it's so exquisite, it's so precise, it's more than caution, it's somewhat less than fear. And then that image of a gunshot to it. I mean, it's a song that I read, it's about domestic violence, right? It's about standing up against somebody who's being tyrannical.
Exactly.
That feed their bellies with fear and death. Conducted them to the brain. Witness to another. Your abuse will end right here. No longer will you feel me there. I'll go down to the head of trepidation. My brothers, if you ever lay a finger.
You know, I was very fortunate that I had a really good childhood. You know, I never had any domestic abuse or whether physical or mental or anything like that. You know, so I definitely was fortunate. But I grew up with a lot of people who did have those problems, and you know, we hadn't started touring yet when I started writing those lyrics. But you know, I've been noticing in the news how it kept. I mean, maybe it's always been bad. Maybe it's just that the media has made it seem worse because we hear about it more because there's more sources of media outlet nowadays. But I wanted to make something that I want to put myself in first-person perspective of someone going through that, someone who had like an abusive family, an abusive lifestyle, and create something that could be something, I mean, now when I think about it, I don't know what I was thinking exactly then, but now when I think about it, I want it to be there for something comforting for someone. And I've actually met a lot of people who said, thanks to that song, I was able to read it and realize I'm not the only one, and it helped me get through this. You know, I've actually just talked to someone a couple months ago who was actually dealing with, you know, they were dealing in their head with a lot of the abuse they had through their family as a kid, and like, this song has really helped me analyze. So that was my big thing. I wanted that to be kind of like the punching bag, you know, or the pillow or the shoulder, or whatever that could be for someone. You know, I've always wanted to, I don't know why I quote want to, but I've always preferred if people that I care about can put the burden off on me so I could try to help them with it. You know, so some people don't want me to, but for the people who do, I can at least do it that way.
I mean, in some ways, that is the role of an artist, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit as well about Declaration, another song on Ascendancy. It presages some of the more overtly political lyrics that we see later on with the Crusade.
Equality for every race, sexuality.
my thing, I wanted to go really into like sociopolitics. I want to go more into what people are going through, and I wanted to make it very angry, because a lot of times it is easier to make it a little more eloquent, a little more thought out, and maybe people respect it more. But I was like, I want to make something that's pissed off and that's angry and that's disgusted about, this country is supposed to be a place that was founded upon living a different belief outside of everyone else's, and now we're one of the countries that's most, not the entire population, maybe half, maybe it's a third, maybe a third is completely bigoted against everything they don't understand, maybe a third is completely accepting of everything, and a third doesn't give a shit. So, I wanted to make something that showed my views, and that might, sometimes we might have fans that disagree with mine and might not like what I want to say, and maybe some people come to the school of thought, don't discuss what your beliefs are, but, my thing is, if we're not completely honest in this, then, what's the point? So I wanted it to be very overtly what I am for and what I'm against.
And I grew up in the South as well, and I think that it's one of those things that when you grow up in the South, you either totally buy into all of that hatred and bigotry that you're surrounded by, or you react to it.
And yeah, this was my reaction, and I've done many since, obviously many since in championing women's rights, gay rights, and what my specific, not necessarily political views, because I'm not really a political person. My main thing is I'm not a religious person, but I'm not anti-religious. My thing is that everyone should be good to one another, no matter what their choice in life is, as long as it's not hurting someone else. Not tolerant of people, but accepting of people for doing what they want to do.
So, and that transitions nicely into the next record, which was The Crusade, which really was almost like reading a newspaper in some ways. I mean, and I liked it a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, for some things, I think I might have been, looking back in hindsight, some of them might have been overly specific, but I think that it could be weighted as positive or negative. I mean, some might say that was great that it was so specific, so you can actually look up exactly what I was talking about and understand where it came from. But I guess that could have put a timeline on the songs. We might have not made them as universal, but it was definitely, it is what it is. That record, there was so much involved with that record. I mean, we made a record that was consciously the opposite of the previous. We made a record that we completely got rid of a lot of the ingredients that were our sound on Ascendancy. And it was definitely an album that was surrounded by a lot of turmoil. I mean, none of us were in the studio at the same time as anyone else when they were tracking. No one was in there when the drums were tracking. No one was in there when I was tracking guitars. None of us were speaking. We all wrote our own songs, put them on the record. So it's a very angry record, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that it showed what happened afterwards, that we still survived afterwards. Because I mean, we could have, and if we were ever going to break up at one point in time, it was during that album cycle, because we were touring so much we couldn't even breathe. Had to write the entire record on the road, get off the road, record the record, and go right back out. So there was like no time, but I guess that's good. It's good that we were in such a pushed frame of mind that there is a record like that in the catalog.
So going back to this concept of really supporting the idea of freedom and women's rights and gay rights and all sorts of things, let's talk a little bit about Ignition.
Our leaders preach if we disagree, we're the traitors of society. Homophobia, racism, sexism, systems free, supremacy. Ignition, inception, learning is a fuse to destruction. Break the walls of ignorance to dissolve the world for its last chance.
Ignition is one that's not as specific as the rest. There are a couple songs where they're obviously super specific and some that are kind of all over the place. But Ignition, it was kind of where I saw where the country was at, not as just a political thing, but kind of as an all-encompassing thing. And
I mean, let me just put it this way: for metal, which is what I love, although I definitely agree with your political viewpoints or your social viewpoints more than perhaps the stereotypical metalhead out there. When was the last time you heard metal musicians sing about homophobia, racism, sexism in such an overt way?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if they ever do. I never hear of it, so that's why it's like I always did it, and I did get criticized by some of the people, not in our band, but in our team. Whether it's the industry people or what, saying like you don't need to come out this much about it. But I'm like, why not? Everyone else gets to say how they're so against it. Whether it be religions or political groups or whatever it is. It's just I wanted to tackle everything. So that album, starting off with that song, with a song that was that general about everything that was going around in America, I think it was definitely pissed off and it was definitely angry, but it wasn't caveman-like in his delivery.
And then it transitioned really nicely on that same sort of lyrical theme into Detonation.
That's the sound of humanity melting away. Say goodbye at the end of days. Fire rains down on the American dream. Watch all your love see the scream. Each will dig their own graves and bury themselves in life failures.
Detonation was kind of the hypothetical situation of what would happen in the world if we kept everything going on. So that was kind of like the future, and the other thing was the present.
Right, and it really kind of gives you a feel for just how vivid that sense of hypocrisy is.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted it to be very visual, and I pictured the world, kind of falling apart because of Ignition setting everything up, and then Detonation just the falling apart of everything.
Now, we're sitting here in San Francisco, so I have to ask you about Sadness Will Sear.
Yep.
Which is an outrageously powerful song about the story of Matthew Shepard. And, you've written some great long multisyllabic words from trepidation all the way down. But to me, the most powerful word on that whole album was sear.
Shepherd is chased by the wolves who live by intolerance and hate. For what they couldn't understand. Blinded and vicious saw the beast eating and ripping at a beautiful human. He did nothing more than be himself. Tied to the fences they break you. And sadness will sear. Cold is the wind that will freeze you. And sadness will sear.
I wanted to make something that was general at first about homophobia and about that story, but it's the Shepherd story that seemed the best because I with his name as well, thinking of it as a different kind of shepherd, but like a sheep herder kind of thing, someone that would lead, and I wanted to think of it as more
And
of
his
like
real role is to protect against the wolves, which was the other great image of it.
exactly, and I thought when I was thinking of seer, I thought of really hellacious, like just pain and hell-like torment, and so I wanted to make that more of like a physical, like where you can picture that. You can picture the searing of skin or something like that. And I've actually met a lot of our fans who've done school reports on it afterwards. I know it was an older story when I wrote it. It wasn't something that was incredibly current, but it was one of those things where I needed something very specific to convey my goal, like the goal of where I wanted the song to go. And it definitely was a hard song to write. Definitely a hard song to look into, but lyrically that whole record was, so it flowed well with it.
Well, that whole record I thought was an incredible inspiration. I very, very much enjoyed it. And just as kind of a personal aside, and you may tell me I'm full of shit, which is always totally, that was an album in which you really came out and spoke very strongly and very vividly against hatred, and yet it seemed like it generated the haters out there. I mean, the haters really reacted.
No, it really did. It really did. Well, I think what that record did was weed out the people that were just into us because we're one of those trendy bands. Looking around nowadays, you can see which bands are kind of the in bands, the buzz bands. They're smaller bands, but they could potentially become something. And, when we were coming out, we were lumped into a specific fad. We were lumped into that metalcore fad a lot when Ascendancy came out, but Ascendancy is not a metalcore record, just that a lot of the bands were doing the same formula as us. Same with, a lot of the bands that are kind of coming from the hardcore scene are doing a lot what death metal is doing nowadays. And yeah, it definitely got a lot of people. It showed the people that early that we're going to do anything. We're not afraid to do the opposite of what we normally do and to test what we can do as musicians or songwriters. So yeah, I think we definitely lost some people. I don't know if they ever came back. But our thing was, like, if you're going to hate our band just because we try something musically, it's like you were never really into us in the first place. Because what people should always want from their bands is a band making the kind of music that's true to themselves. And that record was as true as can get. We wanted to make something that was the opposite of what we just did.
And can I just say, one of the things that pisses me off when I hear people talk about Trivium is, they say, oh, they want to be like Metallica. And I'm like, no, they don't want to be like Metallica. If anything, if you want to compare them to a classic band, without being insulting about it, it's your label mates, it's Megadeth. It's two strong lead guitars, and it's intelligent political lyrics. And so to me, and I always thought Megadeth was 50 times the band that Metallica ever was.
I would agree with you.
So,
Megadeth's probably pretty bad. Yeah, my favorites are definitely Beatles, Queen, Metallica. Those are the ones for me.
yeah. So, anyway, like I said, you can feel free to tell me I'm full of shit
Oh, no,
at any
that's
time.
awesome. No, I love how people, like, our band is there for people to interpret their own ways, and that's what I like. Because, you know, when I go, because I'm really into, like, go to museums and stuff. Like when we played Seattle the other day, I went to the Seattle Art Museum. I wish I could have went to the museum today, but there wasn't time. I went to Chicago Art Museum and did the Chicago Art Museum.
Tweet about that.
Yeah, and I love doing that stuff because it's like, I love to be able to look at a piece because for me it's different when I listen to songs, but I can imagine for people that, you know, aren't necessarily in bands who can hear music and they hear what it is to them, and that's what I want it to be. Like there isn't really a wrong answer, and I want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when I buy the music, it's mine.
Exactly.
It's mine.
So when I see that piece in a museum, like this means this to me, and I read the explanation, like I don't agree with that. That's gonna mean what it means to me. Yeah, that's the way I like it.
Visually, what visual artists? Who are your favorite?
When I first, like, I wasn't super into art at first, but the girl who is now my fiance, she took me out to the Louvre in Paris, and it was the first museum I'd ever been in, like since school field trips and stuff, and it blew my mind, like seeing all the, you know, ancient European art and stuff like that, and I was really into it. So I go into them all the time and try to see like fine art museums. But lately I've been getting into like modern contemporary art. I got to go to the Tate Modern in London and see this old factory converted into all like modern and contemporary art, and I really like that lately because it's their interpretation of what art should be. They don't follow any of the rules and they just do what they feel like. I'm assuming, you know, and I really like that a lot. So that's the way I like to do music, because I don't know formal music. I don't know music theory. I can't read music on guitar. I've thought about teaching myself, but then I thought I might give myself too many rules. So I just rather make my own rules and go with it.
I think you're doing pretty damn well right now. You know, because we're talking lyrics today, but your guitar playing blows me away. I mean, I think it's very evocative. I think and it does do just what you were just saying there, which is that it frees me to be able to explore where I want to go musically as well as a listener.
Exactly.
Let's move on to Shogun now. It's a record that, you know, isn't so much about the news as it is perhaps about history a little bit, and obviously talking about, you know, your own perspective as both being partially Asian and partially Anglo-American, and it kind of combines in a lot of ways sort of the traditions of both of those cultures in a real interesting way. I want to start with something that's really, frankly, straight out of Greek mythology, which is Torn. And, you know, it seems to almost embody that while being very Western, it also embodies that Eastern idea of yin and yang, of trying to not go too far in one extreme or the other.
Apprehension, once adapted, masticated, suffocated, lost the battle, about to crusade, one against all, time to wield the blade, persuasion, surrender, fail, the pyramid incantation, toy, persuasion, surrender, face, frozen, manipulation.
Yeah, with all the songs that refer to mythology and history, I used them at first as I remember this song specifically when I was listening back to the demos, because I wrote this song, and I was listening back to the demos of that one riff, and the first thing I heard in my head was Torn Between Scylla and Charybdis. I'm like, why am I hearing this in my head? So I decided to write it down. I started writing around that, and I used for most of the songs. Some of the songs are retellings, but that song wasn't an entire retelling of the Odyssey story, but I wanted it to be something that could be relatable and used as more of a tool to bring someone somewhere else. So if they want to look into what that meant, they go like a side story and learn about the Odyssey, learn about Scylla and Charybdis. And but the rest of the lyrics are just about like life struggles and about how there will be challenges. And I thought that was a really good metaphor to use Scylla and Charybdis versus just something modern.
And Scylla and Charybdis is about, you know, you don't cheat a little bit towards Scylla because Charybdis is going to get you where one where there's no way to try to you know, to skinny one way or the other.
Yeah.
You've got to really kind of play it down the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there'll always be obstacles, and some may be worse than others, and some may be just as bad as each other. You just gotta figure out what's best for you.
Okay. And then let's end with what I think is just the most powerful song on the record, in which I would die to see you play live someday. I don't know if it'll ever happen, which of course is Shogun the song.
I think we're doing it in March in the UK, unfortunately, so there'll be YouTube videos, but I think we're doing it there.
The monsters walk among us, releasing the blood from what's good, infecting our transmission, swallowing innocence from life. Our time has come to stand forth, the wretched womb from which they feed. Beyond the laws of demons, send them into the hell they made.
It definitely was a story that I created from start to finish. It's not as vivid as having characters or being a concept or anything like that, but I wanted to create a story that fit the music well. Like, 'cause when we started listening back to the music, it sounded like some kind of like mini film score or something like that, and I wanted to make lyrics that told a story. And I'm not entirely sure if that story is about our band or about me or about something that maybe I was influenced by and took the idea from, but it was something I just kept writing. And there are a lot of the songs on Shogun that was a kind of stream of consciousness word writing, and I'm not even entirely sure what the meanings were. And
But
I like
Shogun, you think of it as being sort of this militaristic thing, and yet, to me, the lyric that comes out of that is really, if you succeed in this battle, you still will lose so much more.
Pulses now quickening softly, it's painstaking. Look with them to calm the storm raging inside the form. There's no turning back.
It's almost the same message coming back from Torn, because with Charybdis you'd lose absolutely everything. With Scylla you'd lose a lot, but you might still get off from it. So yeah, it's cool. It was a really interesting album because there were so many words and there was so much revising and rewriting that a lot of the lyrics they don't 100% have an exact meaning. So the other ones I have a direct answer. I know exactly what it is, but this I just wrote and let the music write the words for me. So I thought that was just fun. It was kind of a mystery to find out what it would be.
Yeah, it's an absolutely stupendous song, and I think it really does show kind of the arc of how far you've progressed from Ember, which is an album I listen to a lot, and I still very much enjoy that record very much. But you keep improving and you keep moving forward.
The next one is going to blow everyone's minds. We already have a new song written that's actually coming out this March. The God of War 3 game. And we just recorded it in demo phases to send over to everybody so they can hear it. And it's really great lyrically, song title-wise, the melodies, the brutality. I mean, you can really see what we've learned from every single record and what we're going for the next one.
Can't wait. The pride of Altamont Spring.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Very true.
Matt Heafy, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, man. Very fun interview.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Thank you.
If you like this band, you should buy their music and other merchandise at whitenoisemetal.com. If you like White Noise Metal, say so with positive comments on iTunes and MySpace. And please tell your friends about the bands you've heard on White Noise Metal with that BS dude, Brian Shields.
White noise!
White noise, 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 white noise